You know, there's just something about a Saturday afternoon, finally off the clock, floating in your own pool, cold drink in hand, the sun beating down, that feels like pure, unadulterated peace, you know? That's where I was, just 6 months into my move to Canyon Creek Preserve, enjoying the quiet after what had been a hell of a week. Then, the peace shattered. I heard this sound, expensive sneakers screeching on the stone deck, and then this voice, already dripping with teenage disdain. "Hey, old-timer. You need to bail out, right now." I opened one eye just enough to see him, Chad Jennings, 17, all designer clothes and bad attitude, standing over me like I was a butler who dared to take a break. He had that particular smirk, the kind that screams, "I am bulletproof because my mommy is queen." "This is HOA property," he announced, arms crossed. "My mom runs this whole place, so unless you want to get fined into the Stone Age, you're leaving." I nearly choked on my sip of lemonade. The sheer, magnificent audacity of it, a kid ordering me, on my own land, out of my own pool. If only this smug little princeling knew who he was talking to. Let me rewind a little. 6 months before, I'd moved here to Canyon Creek Preserve for the quiet, the good schools, the well-manicured lawns. It was ideal for a guy who just needed a safe, anonymous place to land after taking on a seriously demanding new role. I'm Marcus Thorne, by the way. And the new role? I'd just been elected county sheriff. I never told anyone my real job. I just kept it vague, public service, county work. It was technically true, and after decades in law enforcement, I knew the second people saw the badge, they stopped being real. I just wanted to be a neighbor, you know, not someone people had to walk on eggshells around. But Canyon Creek wasn't a neighborhood, it was a fiefdom, ruled by Elara Jennings. Elara was the HOA president, draped in expensive yoga gear and a smile so tight it looked painful. She ran the association like a protection racket, pay tribute, or face her wrath. She showed up my first week with her welcome packet, 40-something pages of bylaws, and immediately cited my moving truck for blocking a driveway for 20 minutes too long. It wasn't a threat, it was a declaration of war, delivered with a syrupy sweet voice. She was a control freak, power-hungry, and obsessed with dominance. In 3 years, Elara had stacked the board with her cronies and turned petty bylaws into weapons. The stories I heard were heartbreaking. Doris Albright, a sweet 70-something widow down the street, got hit with a $3,000 cumulative fine because her 15-year-old garden gnomes violated Section 14.3's aesthetic standards. Can you imagine? She was literally skipping medication to pay the HOA fines. The Sullivans, a young couple with a newborn, got a $500 fine because their 8-year-old minivan was deemed unsightly and lowered property values. Elara measured it and found it was 3 inches over the parking line. 3 inches. And Chad? He was Elara's mini-me, a walking disaster with a luxury car and 0 consequences. Loud parties, trashing common areas, damaging property. Whenever a neighbor complained, Elara would swoop in, threatening defamation suits and daily inspections. The whole community was holding its breath, terrified. I tried to keep my head down, truly, but watching the quiet tyranny take hold, the resignation in people's eyes, it ground against every fiber of my being. My job is to protect the vulnerable, but I was just a neighbor here, bound by their rules. Or was I? I realized my secret identity wasn't a mistake, it was a tactical advantage. If I'd stepped in with the badge, Elara would have been careful, compliant, and I'd never have found the deeper rot. I decided to keep the badge holstered, but I started working. I wasn't just observing anymore, I was building a case. Photos, videos, timestamps, financial discrepancies, I documented everything, every abuse, every instance of Chad's criminal nuisance for 6 months straight. So there I was, back in my pool, looking up at Chad. "I'm not leaving," I said calmly, taking another sip. "Because this is my property, my pool, my house." His smirk faltered, then returned stronger. No, it's not, old man. This whole section is HOA community property. My mom showed me the maps. I couldn't help but genuinely laugh. Son, I don't know what fairy tale map your mother showed you, but I've got the property deed that says otherwise. You're trespassing. He flushed fire engine red. Chad wasn't used to being defied, especially not with laughter. His voice cracked slightly. You're done. My mom is going to destroy you. He was already jabbing furiously at his phone screen. I'll wait, I said, settling back into the water. Elara arrived in less than 5 minutes, storming through my side gate like a hurricane in Lululemon. What is going on here? She demanded, not to her son, but to me. I climbed out, grabbing my towel. Your son trespassed, ordered me out of my own pool, and I've asked you both to leave. She pulled out her phone, of course, and flashed a screen at me. According to the official HOA property map, this area is community recreational space. You are the one trespassing. I looked at her, flatly. Elara, you and I both know that's not true. I have the property deed, the survey, the county permits. This has been private property since the foundation was poured. That document looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint. It's an official HOA record, she shrieked, her composure cracking. I'm informing you now, Mr. Thorne, that you are in violation of multiple bylaws. Harassment of community leadership, unauthorized use of community property. The fines alone will be substantial. Thousands. And I'm recommending legal action to have you removed from the community entirely. Chad was grinning, filming everything. This is going viral, dude. Everyone's gonna see what happens when you mess with us. They walked away, triumphant, Elara yelling back over her shoulder that my truck, the vehicle I used for my county work, was getting towed tomorrow. I stood there, soaking wet, watching my neighbors shrink back into their homes, too afraid to be seen associating with me. I looked at the little red light blinking on my waterproof phone case. I had everything. The harassment from Chad, predictably, escalated. He'd key my work truck, blast his engine outside my home, and dump trash on my lawn. I just filmed it. Then came Friday night. I was working late on a major county issue, didn't get home until after midnight. And when I saw my backyard, I felt a cold knot form in my gut. My beautiful, peaceful pool area was a war zone. Beer bottles everywhere, pizza boxes, someone had actually vomited in my wife's flower beds, and my new, expensive grill, it was sitting at the bottom of the pool. I knocked on Doris Albright's door. She was shaking. Sheriff, Marcus, they were here at 6:20 kids. I called Elara, but she just laughed and said, boys will be boys. I wanted to call the police, but she threatened us all. Said if anyone called the cops, she'd make our lives hell with violations. I looked at that sweet, terrified woman, and that was the moment the switch flipped. The game was over. I wasn't waiting anymore. They needed someone who couldn't be bullied, someone with real, certified authority. Doris, I said, my voice quiet, how do you feel about testifying? Because on Monday night, at Elara's little emergency meeting, I'm going to introduce myself properly. And she's not going to like it, not one bit. Monday night arrived with this thick, electric tension hanging over Canyon Creek. Elara had sent flyers and emails painting me as a lunatic renegade threatening their property values, a monster who assaulted her minor son. She'd set the emergency meeting at the community center for 7 p.m., she was setting up a public execution, a show of force. I walked in exactly at 7, wearing a simple polo and jeans, holding a leather folder that contained her entire future. The room was packed. Elara sat at the head table in a designer power suit, her face all righteous fury. Chad was right in front, phone out, recording everything, already planning the viral TikTok titled HOA Queen Destroys Neighbor. Good, You decided to show up, Elara purred, standing up. The room went silent. She launched into her performance. My truck was commercial, my lawn was unkept, and I was illegally occupying HOA land, culminating in the verbal assault of her dear, innocent Chad. She pointed a laser pointer at my face on the projector screen, announcing the penalty: $15,000 in fines, immediate towing of my vehicle, and forced removal from the community. The dollar amount hung in the air like a guillotine blade. "Does the accused have anything to say?" she asked, a smirk of total victory playing on her lips. I stood up slowly, walked to the front, and opened my folder. "Actually, Elara," I said, my voice absolutely calm, "I have a few things to clarify. First, the property." I pulled out 3 county-stamped documents. "Here's the officially registered property deed. Here's the original survey. And here's a letter from the county zoning office confirming that 742 Aspen Lane and all surrounding land, including the pool, is, and always has been, private property. It's not forged. It's public record. You're simply wrong, or more accurately, you're lying." Her face was starting to pale. "Then, the harassment. You claim I harass your family. Let's look at my actions versus your son's." I queued up the security footage on the big screen. The room went dead silent as Chad and his friends, all 20 of them, were broadcast in crystal clear, high definition. They were jumping my fence, throwing furniture, and pushing my expensive grill into the water. Trespassing, vandalism, destruction of property, and contributing to the delinquency of minors, I narrated, letting the footage play for a full minute of destruction. Chad's face had gone white, his phone dropping into his lap. "But that's not all," I continued, turning to the audience. "This pattern isn't just about me. It's about 3 years of systematic abuse." I looked at Doris Albright. "Doris, tell them about the gnomes." Doris, standing up straighter than I'd ever seen her, said, "She fined me $3,000 just to force me out of my home. My gnomes were an excuse." Then Tom Sullivan stood up. "Our car was 3 inches over the line. $500 fine. It was extortion." One by one, they all stood. "The dam broke. She threatened my business. She told my wife she'd report our old renovations. She fabricated assessment fees." The room was a riot of righteous anger. Elara was shaking her head frantically. "This is coordinated slander. You're all lying." "Actually," I cut her off, my voice dropping, "they're all telling the truth. Because you see, Elara, I haven't just been your neighbor for the past 6 months." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my county sheriff's gold shield. The light caught it, and the entire room gasped. "I'm Sheriff Marcus Thorne, elected sheriff of this county. And I've been investigating you." Elara stammered, "That's entrapment." "Entrapment requires inducement," I corrected. "I didn't induce your son to trash my property or you to embezzle funds. You both did that all on your own. I just documented it." I laid the official financial documents on the table, the trail from the HOA account to Elara's personal bank account. "That's embezzlement. That's fraud." Before Elara could scream, Chad lunged forward, his panic turning into pure, entitled rage. "You think your little badge scares me, old man? My family owns this neighborhood." He puffed out his chest and shoved me. The contact was a gift. The room froze. "Chad Jennings," I said, pulling handcuffs from my belt. "You're under arrest for assault on a law enforcement officer, criminal trespass, and vandalism." "No. That's not assault. I barely touched you," he screamed. "Any unwanted physical contact with an officer is assault. Congratulations, you just upgraded your charges." I keyed my radio. "Dispatch, this is Sheriff Thorne. I need 2 units at the Canyon Creek Community Center. Suspect in custody." 2 deputies I'd stationed nearby walked in. Elara went ballistic, screaming and trying to physically block the arrest. They gently, professionally moved her aside. Chad was cuffed, sobbing like the spoiled kid he was, while Elara collapsed, screaming, "My brother-in-law will sue you into oblivion." "Your brother-in-law is a tax attorney in Sacramento," I said, turning away. I checked. Discovery should be fascinating. Within the hour, Elara was removed by a unanimous board vote. The dam didn't just break, the whole reservoir emptied out. The tyranny was over. 3 weeks later, I stood in the courthouse. Chad was sentenced to community service and restitution. Elara's audit revealed over $40,000 in fraud. The civil lawsuits began rolling in, 17 families, represented by David Sullivan, a corporate attorney who was one of the neighbors she terrorized. They sold their house quietly and disappeared before the judgments hit. The neighborhood transformed. Gnomes were back. The new board was transparent. That first community pool day we held at my house, kids splashing where the furniture had once floated, Doris Albright bringing her famous potato salad, it was magic. Tom Sullivan came up to me with a beer. "Sheriff, I gotta ask. Why did you wait?" "I could have shut it down months ago," I admitted, looking out at the laughter. "But Elara would have just paid a fine and kept her job. She would have been careful, not cured. I needed to let them get comfortable being themselves, to build a case so airtight, so undeniable, that when justice finally arrived, it stuck. You know what I learned? Bullies, whether they're in a boardroom or running an HOA, survive on one thing: silence. Elara and Chad didn't rule because they were powerful, they ruled because everyone else felt powerless. The moment ordinary people found the courage to speak up, the moment they stood shoulder to shoulder, the tyranny ended. You don't need a badge to stand up for what's right. You need courage. And that's the only thing that matters. Have you ever dealt with a situation like this, an HOA nightmare, a workplace bully, or someone who abused their little sliver of power? How did you handle it? Drop a comment below and tell me your story. Let's talk about where the line is between rules and rage, and whether silence truly is consent. And if this story reminds you that karma always arrives, hit that subscribe button. Because standing up for the good guys, that's a story worth sharing.